Hello everybody, Matt here again, and today we're going to be talking about horror movie soundtracks. I am a big fan of horror movies, and I'm also a big fan of music, obviously, so they really do go hand in hand. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to run through the horror movie vinyl soundtracks that I personally own. The first one we got here is a really good summer movie for me, and being the summer, I can't help but recommend it to you folks. It's Maximum Overdrive by Stephen King. And the soundtrack that I have for that is AC/DC's Who Made Who. Pretty much outside of that track and two other instrumentals on here, that's pretty much the only new material that's on this record. Other than that, it's almost like a greatest hits. What's really cool about this is that it has the track Ride On, which is probably my favorite AC/DC track. That's sung by Bon Scott, and it's just so cool. It's their only like slow song, and it's absolutely amazing. If you haven't heard this album, you have to check it out. AC/DC Who Made Who? A lot of horror movie soundtracks are very iconic. The second you hear them, you know exactly what the movie is, and this is definitely one of the cases here. The soundtrack for another great summer movie, Jaws. John Williams' score right here, very cool, still got the tag on it, you know I like that. What else can you say about this? This was the character in the film. You know, it's pretty much well documented now that the shark animatronic did not work. So what Steven Spielberg did was he shot just stuff from the shark's perspective and showed very little and kind of let the music be the character, and it works exceptionally well in this piece. You know, Jaws, it's not summer until you watch Jaws, so there you go. And an awesome cover to boot. Great movie, great soundtrack. I think this film really has the honor of being one of the first horror movies that I really did love. And this is a great film because it's not just a horror movie, it's also a Christmas movie. And that's Gremlins here. This is kind of an odd album here because it only has a couple tracks on here. It's got some music on here by Quarter Flash and Peter Gabriel. The Peter Gabriel track is actually really good. And then it has some other pieces here by Jerry Goldsmith and Michael Sembello. I don't think any horror film director out there understands the importance of music more than John Carpenter. And he really proved it on the soundtrack for Christine. As you probably know, in the film, the car communicates by playing old songs on the radio that kind of fit the situation that they're in. And this is just really cool because it's basically all those songs. The track listing on here is amazing. You've got George Thorogood and the Destroyers, you've got Buddy Holly, you've got Johnny Ace, you've got Little Richard, you've got so many good people on here. One of my favorite tracks on here is Harlem Nocturne by the Viscounts, and when I heard that, I thought it was actually John Carpenter who composed it. You know, John Carpenter does a lot of the music for his own movies, and I was really surprised to learn that that was actually a classic track. That's the scene where Christine is reforming herself, and it's very, very cool. This also contains a track by John Carpenter. I really love Carpenter's work. It's that kind of synth pop cool stuff, really, really cool, and awesome cover again with Christine there. How do you kill something that can't possibly be alive? One of the biggest movies of the 80s just celebrated its 30th birthday, The Lost Boys. One thing I can never stand about Santa Carla is all the damn vampires. Yeah, this is an awesome soundtrack. And I mean, what can you say? It's been well documented that this is probably one of the best movies, not even best horror movies, one of the best movies of the 80s, period. This is a fantastic film. And the way a lot of people have argued, this is how vampires are supposed to be. They're sadistic, they're mean, they're evil, and they're out to get you. And they stay up all night listening to awesome rock music. This is just an incredible soundtrack. Very rare to find it in its original pressing. Luckily, Holly got me this reprint of it, and I'm very happy she did. This is a really good soundtrack. I love putting this on and having some rice or some noodles, or so I think. I'm a huge fan of Phantom of the Opera. He's probably my favorite classic Universal monster. Lon Chaney, super cool, and the story itself is absolutely amazing. This is, and I actually haven't listened to this yet, this is the Walter Murphy version of Phantom of the Opera. Apparently this is a dance record, from what I understand. I saw this in a store labeled Funky, and so I'll have to take a listen to that. But basically, he kind of tells a whole story on here, and I'm very excited to take a listen to this. This is really cool. And that cover is kind of interesting too. So he's kind of like a lizard man on there. So yeah, whatever. Still super cool. Again, Phantom of the Opera, one of my favorite horror stories of all time, and this is probably up there as like my favorite film of all time. Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise. This is, there are no words for this. Paul Williams, who is the guy when it comes to songs from the 70s. He did all the music for the Muppets. He did Old Fashioned Love Song. He is the guy, and he did the soundtrack for this film. And basically, I could do a whole video on this, and I probably will. This is just an incredible film that combines 70s rock, Phantom of the Opera, Faust, all these great things. And there's all this fantastic stuff on this album. There are some like parodies on here of the Beach Boys and Sha Na Na, and then there's just some hauntingly beautiful piano stuff with just Paul Williams. And this movie, if you haven't seen it, you definitely have to. If you're a fan of Rocky Horror, this actually predates it. This was in 1974, and I personally think it's a lot better. If you find the soundtrack, this is one of those things, I'm going to tell you, if you see this album, you need to buy it, because the music alone will stand the test of time and will absolutely blow you away. Highly recommend this one, Phantom of the Paradise. Great album. Return of the Living Dead. Awesome movie. I know I say awesome a lot. Fantastic movie. This is a good album. It's got a lot of punk bands on here. I'm not big on punk, but I like who they choose to use and how they choose to use it in the film. The music is essentially another character in the film and really punctuates the sequences that are in there with the dead rising out of the grave just to party. It's super cool. This is another one. It's such an iconic 80s movie where the dead come back to life to eat brains and to party. That's really cool. It's another great horror comedy, much in the vein of Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, Evil Ed, right around in there. This is a really great one if you haven't seen it. And this was one of those records too. I told myself if I ever see this, no question how much it is, I'm gonna buy it. I found it, I did, great find. I know they don't technically count as horror movies, but I'm going to go ahead and break them out here. The Rocky Horror Picture Show film soundtracks. We've got the original here, obviously, and then we have the sequel, Shock Treatment. Most people don't know there actually was a sequel. When it comes to this one, I got to recommend both the soundtrack and the film. Obviously, they're both classics, and this is, of all the versions of Rocky Horror that I've heard, the film version is still #1 in my book. There's been a release of the Broadway version, the revival, this version. This one is still so good. You've got Tim Curry on here. I mean, come on, he's Tim Curry, man. He's Pennywise. He's Dr. Frank in this one, and it still thrills me and chills me. This is a really good edition of this soundtrack, and one I was very happy to find. This has recently come back into reissues, so it's out there. Check it out if you're a Rocky Horror fan. Definitely check it out. The second soundtrack is the one for the sequel, Shock Treatment. It's not necessarily a sequel. If you see it, it's much in the same vein as almost like a tribute film. I don't know really what you would call it. I can't really recommend the film, but I can recommend the soundtrack. Richard O'Brien did it again and created a really good soundtrack here with a good mix of a little bit of everything. Definitely you can tell the hard 80s influence on this one, and it's got some fantastic tracks with Breaking Out and of course the title track Shock Treatment, all very good. And that cover will just give you nightmares. Ugh. On October 30th, 1938, Orson Welles terrified a nation with this, The War of the Worlds, the original broadcast. Kind of cheating a little bit. This is definitely more sci-fi, but this is a really good find for me. I am a huge fan of the War of the Worlds film, the book, and Orson Welles in general, and the work of H.G. Wells as well. This broadcast caused mayhem when it first came out, and it really was an incredible feat for them to do it. And I love that this is the original broadcast. This is a really great one to put on Halloween night, because I think Orson Welles says at the end, just remember that was no Martian, it's Halloween. He got the biggest trick of all on that Halloween night in 1938. Very cool. And it's also awesome to listen to this and just picture in your head the things that are happening. They really did paint a beautiful picture with their words in this radio broadcast. Keeping in the vein of science fiction, this is one I was very, very happy to find this. This is themes from classic science fiction, fantasy, and horror films. A lot of these movies, as you can probably tell, if you watch them, they have a lot of similar music. A lot of times it's the same music. They didn't want to pour a whole lot of money into these films when they made them. And so they just reused a lot of music, and so they put it out here on a record. This has got some good ones on here. The Mole People, Creature from the Black Lagoon, gotta love that one. This Island Earth, It Came from Outer Space, The Creature Walks Among Us, Son of Dracula, The Deadly Manus. I mean, this is a really cool one, and what I love about this one is that on the back it's got some great liner notes about the films themselves and the use of music in them. And then, of course, you got the posters up front. Awesome. Very cool. Love that record. Again, kind of cheating here a little bit, but it is a bit of a thriller, and it was part of Grindhouse, so Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof soundtrack. I love Tarantino's soundtracks. He picks some of the coolest music to put in his films, and this one is not only up there as one of my favorite soundtracks, but definitely one of my favorite albums of all time. This was another one I told myself, if I see it, I'm getting it. That car is so cool in that movie, and Kurt Russell is so cool in this movie. I saw this movie on opening night in the theater. It was packed, and there's a part in the movie where Kurt Russell looks at the camera and he just gives this look, and everybody in the audience went ballistic. We knew what was going to happen, we were excited to see it happen, and the music just really did amplify it. I love this because it's got a lot of good surf music on here, and it's got probably the best version of Staggerly on here. By Pacific Gas and Electric. That one will absolutely blow you away. It's also got some dialogue on here from the film, and it's just very cool. Definitely puts you in that kind of 70s grindhouse kind of mood, and that's what it's supposed to do. Death Proof. Wrapping up here with an album I forgot to put on my picture disc and colored vinyl video. This is the soundtrack to Halloween 2 by Death Waltz Records, and obviously the music here done by John Carpenter. And this is the epitome of 80s horror right here. John Carpenter, not only a great director, but also a fantastic composer, and really demonstrates it on this particular film. I love this release. This is another one that Holly got me, because it comes with this very cool poster of the album cover, and then the vinyl itself is glow in the dark. So I might try to get that going here on Halloween this upcoming year. And this, again, it's so cool because Carpenter understood the importance of music. Most people know this story now, but the original Halloween had no music in it, and nobody was really afraid of it. It didn't test well, so Carpenter went back, he added the famous Halloween theme, and the rest is history. Fantastic soundtracks. I hope you check them out for yourself, and happy hunting out there for those of you that are looking for vinyls. If you have a suggestion for a video you'd like to see me do, leave it in the comments below, and I will get right to it. I'm going to try to do about 2 videos a day, and we'll kind of just go from there. Until then, that's all I have to say about my horror film vinyl soundtracks. I will see you guys